Hey guys, gonna give it a second. Let some people jump on. Let me know if you're there. Hey Tito. Emily, yay. I'm missing Missouri. Wish we were back. Okay. Hey guys. Okay, Whitney, how close do you want me to get? That was for Whitney. Sorry guys, that was kind of scary. Okay. Let me give a few more seconds. Trying to think what's exciting that I can share. Nothing really. Just life. Don't do that again. I will never do that again, but you ask for it. So you got it. Because I love you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started and jump into this. So we are on chapter 3 of Big Girls Don't Whine. And I guess the first thing I want to know and I want y'all to think about is how have you done this last week with just being real? Is it going well for you? Has it been eye-opening? If y'all want to respond, that would be awesome. Helps. I'm telling you, I still miss where I can actually see your faces. That helps. That would be much more fair because you can see my face. So I would like to see your face. But, okay. So, let's see. So our project last week was just to be real, and to, even if we didn't like the real, go ahead and admit what the real is about us. So hopefully that kind of got you in the right mind frame to get started for the rest of this book. This week's chapter is How a Big Girl Speaks and How a Big Girl Thinks. So she starts off with a story about, at one point in their marriage, I guess she brushed her teeth every night before she went to bed. She went in to find her toothbrush and brush her teeth, and she couldn't find it. And she knew that her husband had helped clean the bathroom, and she saw him using a toothbrush, so she just kept on and on, you know, where's my toothbrush? He said, I don't know where your toothbrush is. I didn't use your toothbrush. But she was convinced that it was him, and so she just kept on just interrogating him, trying to figure out what was going on. She was acting ugly about it, and at one point he finally just got up and he left. And, you know, this was at night. And, you know, she was like, well, fine, I'm kind of glad he's gone. He'll be back, whatever. But then she heard her son, and he was crying, and he was upset. And so she was checking on him. And what he heard was, Daddy left, and he's not coming back. And then at that point, it kind of opened her eyes to the point that, you know what, I just acted really stupid. A toothbrush. I just did this to my child over a toothbrush. And so when her husband came back, he basically just walked in, tossed 6 toothbrushes on the bed, and said, here, now go brush your teeth. And let's see, she said, so I brushed my teeth and I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep for thinking about the little boy, my precious son, who had been profoundly affected by his mother's little girl attitude. Right or wrong, I had made a choice, and that choice wounded the most vulnerable member of our family. And she said that incident marked the beginning of significant growth. Being faced with the stark reality about yourself is often the first step toward growing up and wanting to leave behind your childish ways. In fact, it's the best and only way to learn. When you see yourself for who you are and for what you're doing, the choice to change becomes evident. And that's kind of why I wanted you guys this week, you know, to think about, who are you? Who are you really? Not who you're portraying to other people, but who are you really on the inside? And like Melissa said, you know, she's been able to identify some areas. Hopefully all of you have at some point or another during the week thought, I probably could have done that better, or I could have done that differently, or I nailed it, I got that right. You know, this isn't about a beat us up book. This is about, let's continue the things we're doing right, and let's work on the things that need to be better. And that was a bug that just dive bombed my face. Anyway, but I'm excited I'm finally outside. It's the first time I've been able to do this outside because of weather and stuff. So, anyway, she said, now it took me a while to understand that the choice to change was mine, but the actual changing was something that God would have to do in me. And that's what I want to encourage you with tonight is you choose to change, but then you're not alone. You don't have to do it by yourself at that point. That's when you invite God in and you say, okay, check me, you know, help me, guide me through this process. She said, I could want to change, I could decide to change, I could modify my behavior, but God had to accomplish the permanent change that I could depend on. I could put away the things that I didn't like to do, but God is the one who could lock the cupboard door. And that's so true. You know, once you get to that point that you see the things that you need to work on, the things that you want to be different in your life, that's your part. That's the effort. And after that, once you give it to God, He helps you through it. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be, you know, perfect from that point on, but He will help you. So you need to work on how to speak. So many times I need God to help me filter. Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk about that tonight also. And then obviously, you know, if you do have experience with the Bible or whatever, you kind of just know that 1 Corinthians 13:11 is going to come up. And it's when I was a child, I spoke as a child, and I thought and reasoned as a child. But when I grew up, I put away childish things. So that's pretty much the theme for this chapter. So, the first section, I used to speak like a child. And I'm going to read quite a bit, just verbatim on this. It says, the tongue is one of the first markers of maturity. If you want to give yourself a personal maturity checkup, you can begin by listening to yourself. How do you speak? What tone do you use? Do you sound the way that you want to sound, or do you sound like a whiny little girl? Your words are a dead giveaway, especially if you're tired, hungry, or just plain ticked. And that's the key right there. It's not just how do you speak when you're having a great day and everyone's being nice to you, but how do you speak when you're irritated, when you're tired? You know, there's the whole HALT acronym, and that's the one when you don't make a decision if you meet one of these things, if you're in one of these situations. HALT, H is for hungry, A is for angry, L is for lonely, and T is for tired. So the words that you use, that's also a decision. So this is one of those times that, you know, you're more vulnerable and you're more likely to not make the choices that you want to make. So that's when you need to kind of be aware of how you feel. It says, the little girl in you will want to be heard and may blurt out things that she really doesn't mean. With practice, you might even recognize what's happening and hear yourself say, where did that come from? I'm going to guess that all of us have been through that at some point. You know, we do something, I know, you know, raising my kids, off and on through the marriage. I'd like to say early married, but I mean, I've done it recently. It's like I'll do something or say something, and then afterwards it's like, why? I don't even care that much about what I said. Why did I get so upset? Or why was I not happy about something? Or why did I let that affect me? But the more you can recognize that, the faster it will come, and hopefully you can recognize it before you say something next time. So the where did it come from? And I love that she says, well, my dear, it came from you, your will and your emotions. The big girl truth to live by in this little section is you can always add to a conversation at the appropriate time, but you can never erase the words once they're spoken. And that is key. That is so amazing, the way that she wrote that. You know, a lot of times, even if we have the right answer, like I alluded to last week, we still don't have to give it. We don't have to say something. We don't have to jump in. If you'll sit back and think before the words come out, you're going to have a lot less cleaning up to do, and you're going to have a lot less injured people. It says, the big girl knows that her speech matters. She knows that she has the power of life and death in her tongue, just like Proverbs 18:21 says. So she uses it very carefully, knowing that it's like a loaded weapon. She remembers in all situations. And that's the key, is the consistency that we talked about last week. So, like we said earlier, change is not a big self-effort campaign. God is faithful to fulfill the desires of an obedient heart. When you can revert to little girl ways, admit it, ask for forgiveness, and then get on with it. Don't wallow in it. Don't beat yourself up. It says you just have to want to change and invite Him into the process. Let me see what Emily's saying. Another thing to think about is how it will sound to the audience. I will say things that I don't mean for them to sound mean or snippy, but to the other person it sounds that way. That's for sure. Definitely. I have to be careful sometimes because I am task oriented and I'm detail oriented, and I tend to focus. Like Tommy talked about me driving the other day. I have something I have to do, and there are so many times in churches that I've had to be careful and slow down, because if I'm focused on something, I could walk past 5 people and not even realize I walked past them. Or I might say hi and think I'm being friendly, and really I'm not, because I'm not slowing down and I'm not paying attention. So, that's an example of it. But for sure, just because things sound okay to you doesn't mean that they're coming across to the other people. And if you pay attention, you'll be able to read their emotions and read their responses, and you'll see, and you can just back up and say, maybe that didn't come out right or whatever, and then you try it a different way or you slow down. But that's an awesome point, Emily. So this next section is, I used to think like a child. Our speech is governed, at least in part, by the way that we think. Thinking is the engine that pulls along every emotion that you have. So many of us have never abandoned childish ways of thinking, and therefore we find ourselves overwhelmed with childish emotions and childish speech. The big girl knows that her capacity to think is her greatest asset. Mature thinking produces mature living. And that's where it boils down to. And it's funny because I didn't know what Tommy was speaking about last night, and he didn't know which chapter we're on. But he talked about, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And talking about getting your thoughts under control, basically. And that's what we have to do on this whole big girl journey. We have to start, and really, whether we admit it or not, we're controlling our thoughts anyway. We're controlling our emotions. It's just, which choice are you making? Are you controlling to the point that you're making the right choices, or are you controlling to the point that you don't care and you're saying what you want to say, when you want to say it, however you want to say it? You're making a choice whether you think you are or not, because you're allowing the words to come out of your mouth. But if we can get control of our thought process, and just the fact that we have a thought process, actually think through things before you say them. A lot of times, like if I'll ask Tommy something, he'll sit there for a second, and it's not that he's ignoring me or not answering me fast enough. He's processing what he wants to say, because he knows that words matter to me, and how he says them matters to me. And so he's making sure that he says it in a way that's going to communicate the way that I need to be communicated with. So this has another, as far as our words and our thought process goes, here are some more examples of what children do versus what women are supposed to do, or adults in general. It says, children don't think things through to their natural conclusion. They see only what is immediate. And I want you to see if you agree with this, and if you kind of see yourself in any of these things. And again, it's acknowledging that that's who we are and what we are is the easiest way for us to start growing and to change that. Children don't think about how their actions will affect others. And there are a lot of people that just say what they want to say, not realizing, or really not caring. It's not that you don't realize, it's that you don't care about how it's going to affect other people. Children are unable to see more than one side to any situation. All of these are just awesome. Children take things personally. She hurt my feelings. That's my doll. He hit me. Taking things personally is a huge indicator of a little girl. Children really like it best when it's all about me. Children are better manipulators than negotiators. That one didn't stick out to me earlier, but it just did. It says they learn early how to manipulate and whom to manipulate. Huge indicator. Children like fairy tales where good guys always win, bad guys always lose, and everyone lives happily ever after. I kind of like that myself, so maybe I need to work on that one. Children tire easily and allow fatigue to affect their general attitude and demeanor. And that, again, that's the whole, you're in control of you. Yeah, you might be tired. Yeah, you might have a lot of stuff on your mind, but the person that's in front of you is always more important. You can go back and you can deal with your issues at some point. But if someone's in your presence, there's a reason that they're there, and I think that God probably placed them there a lot of the times. And I think we miss opportunities to love on people and to encourage people because we're so just focused on us. So that's a good one. Children do not know what's best for them, although they may protest loudly when they fail to get what they want. Children do not know what's best for them. They may protest loudly when they fail to get what they want. I mean, I think all of those are pretty obvious. And those are just some of the ways that children think. And adults that are still little children think that way. So, in contrast, let's look at how a big girl thinks. Big girls think things through to their natural conclusion. They see not only the present, but the future as well. Makes sense with what we were talking about with the little girl. Big girls think about how their actions will affect others. They don't just spout out whatever's on their mind or whatever's going to make them feel better temporarily. They think through, do I really need to say this because this is the result of what's going to happen? And sometimes you do. You do need to go ahead and say stuff. Make sure you say it with love and make sure that you say it purposefully. That's the biggest thing. Big girls can see more than one side to any situation. And that's the thing, the whole gossip thing. If you get involved in that, what you're doing is you're deciding that one side is more important than another. First of all, if someone comes to you with the whole, oh, I'm going to talk to you because I can talk to you and I can't talk to anyone else, blah, blah, blah. If they'll, hey, Michael, you can learn any way if you'd like. You can be a big boy instead of a big girl. See ya. But just lost my train of thought. On the gossip thing. If you get involved in that, what you need to do, first of all, is say this is not something I need to know. But when you're observing a situation or when you are, counseling someone through something or helping them, you need to make sure that you know both sides. There's always another side. And there have been situations that, that I've said in counseling with Tommy, and as someone is telling their story, I catch myself forming an opinion. And then I think, well, wait a minute, there's more to this. And once you hear the full story and you hear from both sides, you can understand where both sides are coming from. You can see what the deal is. But you just have to be careful to not start making that judgment before you know the whole story. Just know that you never really know the whole story if it's not yours. So be careful about making judgments about people because of that. Let's see. Big girls don't take things personally. And that's something that I've had to work on over the years, especially like in my marriage. Like if Tommy will say something, I've thought, oh my gosh, he's not happy with me, he doesn't like me, whatever. Well, no, there's just something that we needed to deal with or something that we needed to talk about or whatever. So, don't take things personally. And also, I guess, with friendships along the way, I have to, if someone says something and it hurts me, I have to back up and think, okay, why did that hurt me? Am I taking it personally, or is there, or were they really trying to be mean? Most of the time, people aren't trying to be mean. There are some that are, but for the most part, people are good. Big girls understand that life is never all about me. And, we'll talk about that all the way through this. If you can get your focus on other people, your stuff's going to work out. And someone's going to be there for you just like you're there for someone else. It's going to happen. Big girls are good, fair, and reasonable negotiators. And there's a story in here that's kind of addresses that one that we'll get to. Big girls may like fairy tales. Okay, I feel better because the whole little girl thing about fairy tales, I'm definitely, let's wrap this up and have a bow on it and everyone lives happily ever after. Tommy says I live in land. So anyway, that's okay. I'm going to stay there. Big girls may like fairy tales, but they like true stories too and are well aware of the difference. And that's important. I'm getting there. Big girls may tire, but they don't allow their fatigue to control their general attitude and demeanor. We kind of addressed that one already. Big girls know what is best for them and are disciplined enough to go after it. And that one's pretty cool. Let's see. So the next section, big girls stand firm in the Lord. Big girls plant their spiritual feet firmly in the Lord. They don't waffle back and forth between he loves me not. And that's talking about God. That's talking about your relationship. God loves you. Even when you mess up, God loves you. It's not a matter of, oh, is he on my side? And honestly, growing up, a lot of how I served God, I guess a lot of the reason that I served God, or that I did things right is because I was afraid of God. And I loved God, and I knew that God loved me, but I didn't really experience the kind of relationship he wanted me to have with him. And after Tommy became a Christ follower, and I watched him as he would read the Bible, and, he would just make it come alive, and he talked about the relationship with God. That's when I kind of realized what a relationship with God's supposed to be. It's not just an act right so you can get to heaven. We were created for relationship with him. We were created to worship him. We were created to spend time with him. And it's because he wants to be around us. It's not just because, I want people to, bow down to me or whatever. That's not the kind of God that we serve. We serve a God that really does want what's best for us. And he wants to teach us, and he wants us to grow, and he wants us to have the easiest life that we can have. Not that we're not going to have problems, but he wants us to get through those things gracefully. And so it's, when you get past the, okay, is God mad at me, whatever, that's a little girl thought. Does he love me? Does he love me not? God loves you. That's all there is to it. He loves you, and he wants you to grow, and he wants what's best for you. He wants to spend time with you. So there's no reason to even spend time in your mind about, does he love me? Does he love me not? It says, every big girl who has made that decision comes to the point where she realizes that she cannot do things on her own. Like everyone else in the world, she cannot keep God's law perfectly. And the scripture that I'd been looking for was used in the sermon at the service that we went to yesterday morning. And it's Ecclesiastes 7:20. It says, there's no one on earth who is righteous, no one who does what is right and never sins. So get over yourself. It's okay. We're going to mess up. That's not an excuse. That doesn't give you permission. But when you do, recognize it and move on. Don't use that as an excuse of, I've already messed up. What am I going to do? I'm a poor sinner saved by grace. No, you are an overcomer. You were created to excel. You were created to be more than you even realize that you can be. You're going to mess up. The key is don't continue. Don't practice that mess up. Move on. Realize you messed up. Realize how bad you felt about it the next time that you think about doing it again. It's that simple. Not simple, but simple. It's a choice. It all goes back to you're in control of your mind. You're in control of you. And we have to realize and admit that. So, it says she stands firm no matter what wind blows. In other words, she chooses to position herself in such a way that she will not get knocked over by failure or discouragement or anything else that might rob her of the life that she's found in Jesus. Unfortunately, things are going to happen. But if you're grounded in God and you trust God, you're going to get through it. It's just, it just is that way. And there's some really bad things that people have been through, but I can't imagine if they'd had to go through those things without God. Hard enough to go through it with God, knowing that he has your back and knowing that he's holding you and that he's working things out. I can't imagine going through those things without God. So it doesn't say that things are going to go away, but it says he's going to get you through it. Okay, on to the next section. Big girls overlook transgressions. She points out something that's pretty funny that I'd never thought about until, obviously, the first time I went through the book. But in Philippians 4:2, it talks about two women, and it says, I urge you to live in harmony in the Lord. It's so funny because she said it would seem that these two women had trouble with this harmony thing. These two girls probably squabbled, and now their disagreement has been recorded for all time. Can you imagine being the person that is the example that ends up in the Bible for everyone to look at? Hey, I'm the one that messed up, Anyway, apparently it was pretty bad with these two. But the point is, it's probably pretty bad with us sometimes too. Big girls overlook transgressions. They don't spend a lot of time on the little stuff. They cut each other a lot of slack and recognize that no two women are going to see things the same way. It doesn't mean you have to let people walk over you. It doesn't mean that you have to, they hurt me, it's no big deal, whatever. It means that you take the high road. It means that you step back and say, again, like we said earlier, did I just take something personally that I shouldn't have? Or was this something legitimate that I need to go and work out? There's the whole thing about biblical way to handle conflict too. If it's truly conflict and truly something that needs to be worked through, absolutely work through it. But make sure it matters. Make sure it's worth it. Don't let this be one of those situations where you come back and you're like, Why did I do that? That we talked about earlier. Why did I say that? Why did I go there? Sounds stupid now, if you'll give it, sometimes even just wait till the next day and see if you still feel the same way about it. Yes, big girls take the high road. Let's see. And, the other thing is realize that sometimes people are going through things that you may not even know about. So if you can just kind of step back, decide what's important, decide what matters. I had a thought to go with that, and it just went away. Let me see. Okay, guess I didn't need to share it, or it would come back. So, the next section, big girls rejoice in the Lord. I love the examples in here. Philippians 4:4 says, rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say rejoice. Attitude is everything. The big girls know that whatever is going on, the way that they respond is crucial. And it points out, too, that the writer of Philippians, Paul, is not being redundant when he says rejoice, and again I say rejoice. He's basically saying just keep rejoicing. Rejoice. Stay positive. Stay focused on God because you're going to get through this. And she uses examples of lambs. And, when you think about, there's some videos that absolutely make me laugh because it doesn't take a lot to make me laugh sometimes. But the little goats that jump around and they bounce off of each other. And, I watch those and they make me smile. And those are rejoicing goats. They rejoice and then they keep on rejoicing. Not because things are wonderful, and this is back to big girls, obviously. Not because things are wonderful, but because of the joy of the Lord that comes from knowing that God is in the middle of the things that are going on. And that's the thing. Like I said, you may have to go through some stuff sometimes, or you may have to deal with people that are not fun to deal with, but God's still God. And if you focus on Him and you do what's right, because ultimately you're responsible for you. I'm getting ahead of myself, but you're responsible for you. You're not responsible for that other person. And I have a hard time with that one sometimes because I just want to fix things. And if I see someone that I know it's not right, it's not fair that they're getting away with it, whatever, I want to jump in and fix things, or I want to go say, hey, let me shake you for a minute because you're not doing right. I'm responsible for me, they're responsible for them. If they're open to it, maybe I can guide them through it at some point. If they're not open to it, all I'm doing is getting myself frustrated. So that's one that I definitely work on. But the opposite of these little happy jumpy goats are the fainting goats, which these also make me laugh. It says, what a contrast they are to the little leaping lambs. These goats are slightly nasty and not very pretty. They meander around, foraging for food, until they are startled by life in the goat yard, and then they just faint. And that's hilarious to me, to see a goat walking around, and then all of a sudden it just faints. It says they can't stand to be startled, so they don't take the time to rejoice. They just faint to get away from reality. They're programmed to avoid dealing with it. Huge characteristic. Big girls rejoice through it. They deal with it. You suck it up. You move on. You do what has to be done. Little girls, they're always the ones, I need to get away. They're basically not dealing with things. They're avoiding. And if you need to get away and rest and whatever, that's awesome. I'm not saying that. But these are the ones that just kind of, they act like nothing's wrong, or they act like nothing's happening because they don't really want to deal with what's going on or who they are and who they've become. So, let's see, we have 2 more sections in this chapter. 7:30. Let's keep going. Okay, it says your capacity to think is your greatest asset. Mature thinking produces mature reasoning. This section is big girls are reasonable. Having a forbearing or gentle spirit isn't always easy. But big girls are reasonable. They aren't pushovers, but they can be reasoned with. And that's something to keep in mind, too. I'm not just saying never say anything, I'm not saying don't address things, don't speak ever, let people just walk on you, be a doormat. I'm not saying that. There are times that, yes, if you need to speak up for what's right, speak up for what's right, but do it in a way that's loving, that will end up being productive because you're actually helping people instead of pushing people away or just trying to get your point across or just trying to be right. She talked about a situation where she was trying to return something and basically dealt with a manager that was ugly, and, she had the choice to either be ugly back or to just be calm and to be rational in the situation. And that's something that, we've been in this house that we're in almost a year, not quite, but I'm still dealing with some of the, like our internet. We're out in the middle of nowhere. It's horrible. You call about it, you talk to 15 different people, then you find out you called the wrong number, and they'll give you a new number, or they'll transfer you without giving you a number, and then you get cut off and you start over. And it's just, as I'm going through these things, I have to stop and remind myself that the person I'm talking to is not the person that did this. They're not responsible. And I have even caught myself saying, when I'm telling them my problems, and I'm like, okay, you're the fourth person I've talked to, this is the issue, blah, blah, blah. I will go ahead and say, and I know it's not your fault. I realize it's not you. This has been frustrating, and I'm trying to get some help. If you can just recognize when you're getting to that point, and maybe even go ahead and admit it. Say, okay, I'm frustrated. I'm not trying to fuss at you. I'm fussing about this situation. What do I need to do to get help? And not just even with dealing with customer service representatives or whatever, but just in life in general. If you're in a situation and you realize you're getting frustrated, don't speak and react out of that frustration. Refocus, realize what you're doing, and then move forward in a way that's going to be productive. Because really getting frustrated doesn't help you. All it does is get everyone frustrated, and then, it just doesn't work out well. Reasoning with the big girl is always a rational process. So if you're dealing with someone and they're not making sense and they're not being rational, just realize you're dealing with a little girl, and you're going to have to deal with them differently. Don't get sucked into the little girl thing, because that's easy to do. Even if you're a big girl, it's easy to get sucked back in when you hang out with little girls or you're dealing with a little girl. You're still a big girl, and you have to remember that, and you have to own that. It says being irritated didn't change a thing. If you allow your emotions to enter into these situations, you're going to say things you don't mean to say. And like we said earlier, you can always add, but you can't take back the things that you've already said. It says a little girl may reason that she can stomp her foot and sway God's opinion. She can be bullheaded and selfish while demanding that God does what she wants him to do. A big girl makes the choice not to reason against God. She understands that she can't argue with God. He is the one in control. She is not. And I've had the opportunity here lately to do this. And some of you that have been through some of this with me before know I'm one of those people that I'm a planner. I like to know what's going to happen either way. If it's what I want, if it's not, as long as I know what's coming up, I can deal with it. And I like to pray for what I want to happen. And then I know that God's going to do better, because he always does better than what we want. But with our whole transition that we've had here lately, this is the first time that I've really sat back and I've said, I always, will say, okay, this is what I'd like to happen, but God, I want what you want to happen. This is the first time I didn't tell God what to do. And it's been very hard because I like to be in charge of me, and I like to know what's happening, and I want to take care of my family, and I want to know that everything's going to be okay. And even though I know everything's going to be okay, because everything's always been okay, because God has always taken care of us, you still sometimes get a little nervous, or it's that whole let God be in charge and not you. Sometimes it's hard. It's not easy to let go because we can't see what's going to happen. I know that he does. I trust him, but sometimes it's still like, okay, God, you need to show me something, because I'm getting a little nervous. But this has been the first time that I've really just said, I'm not trying to sway God. I'm not trying to say this is what I want. He knows what I want. And ultimately what I want is what he wants. And so that's been a really cool experience for me, because he has shown up. I thought I'd get through all these without crying. He's shown up in ways that I didn't expect him to show up. And then I could kick myself for not expecting him to, because that's just the kind of God that he is. But it's so cool to me when he's done these little things that maybe no one else notices, but he knew they were on my heart, and I didn't ask for them, and he did them anyway. And it was just that kind of, I got you, don't worry about this. So I just want to challenge you to do that. Yes, it's okay to say, okay, God, this is how I think it should happen. But maybe try the whole, I can see these both ways, but God, I want what you want. And I'm not gonna sway you. I'm not gonna argue my case this time. I just want what you want. And God's amazing. So, anyway, okay. I'm crying and my nose is turning red, but that's okay. A big girl makes the choice not to reason against God. She understands that she can't argue with God. He is the one in control, and she is not. I just read that twice, but that's okay. And then the last section in this is big girls embrace the peace of God. And again, with what I was just talking about, it's the peace that we've had through the situations that we've been going through lately. It doesn't make sense. It absolutely does not make sense. Normally, we would be stressed, we would be concerned, we would be, scrambling around. What can we do? Can we speed things up? Can we make things better? And it's just, when you really truly give it to God, and I've given things to God before, but I don't think I've ever really all the way given it to Him like I have this time. And it's been so amazing because you realize that God really does listen. He really does care, and He really does want what's best for you. But the peace that comes with it is the most amazing thing. It says it's hard not to be anxious when you go through things, but big girls do the hard things. And that's what we're going to do as we go through this book and as we grow and as we let God change us and mature us and make us into the people that we need to be. Big girls do the hard things, but you can do the hard things. And you want to do the hard things or you wouldn't be listening right now. So you've got this. We can do this together. We can change. We're going to slip back and forth, but we're going to be big girls. It says, tell the one who can do something about whatever it is that you're dealing with. And God will say, tell me about it. Tell me what you want me to do about it, and thank me for hearing your requests. And when you do that, He promises that all things are going to get really good, beyond your understanding. You will have a peace that doesn't make sense. You will feel as if you've been caught in a roaring wind, and suddenly, inexplicably, everything goes quiet. Peace will come without explanation. You won't know where it came from, and you won't know why it came. You just know it's there. And you will stand guard over your emotions. You will include not only your thoughts, but your perceptions. Peace will come and put everything under control. First, though, you must make a move of sheer obedience and say, I'm going to give all of the anxiety to God. There's a scripture, Psalm 46:10, and this is one of my friend's favorite scriptures. She's named her business after it and everything. Be still and know that I am God. I want you to practice that. I want you to just, whatever it is you're going through, I want you to fully give it to God. Be still and know that I'm God. Give Him that chance. And I'm telling you, if you will do that, God will show out. God will prove Himself to you, and it will be the coolest thing that you've ever experienced. But it's going to take some bravery. It's going to take some courage, but you can absolutely do it. I thought I was done with that, and I'm not done with that. 2 more sections. I said we were in the last section. Okay, I'm trying to hurry because I realize this one's gone a little bit long. Okay, big girls dwell on what's true. Big girls control what their minds dwell on. It's the feeling that you don't go back to that favorite bad feeling. It talks about, like as a child, you may have some things that when things would happen, you'd go hide in your room, or you'd go talk to your dolls, or you'd go mumble and tell yourself how horrible everything was. So some of us cry, some pout, some sleep, some eat chocolate, some go shopping, some withdraw, some slam doors, some clean house, some sit and stare. Big girls know that they have a choice. You either go to that bad feeling or you move forward and you deal with what you need to deal with and get it over with. It says, although they have their favorite bad feeling, they can readily access it. They choose not to go there. And that's the difference between a big girl and a little girl. It's there. You always have the option to be a little girl. You get to choose to be a big girl. Big girls know that they have power over their minds and emotions. They have learned that it's erroneous to say, my husband or my sister or my father or my coworker or my friend made me feel that way. Like I said earlier, you're responsible for you, and that's the biggest thing to get out of this. If you don't like how you feel, then change your thinking. The thinking is the important part. It says you can hear what other people say, but you don't have to take their words into your mind and dwell on them. How you feel is up to you, not anyone else in your life. And then the last section, making room for God's transforming work. When you see the things in you that you need to work on, it says we see them, we don't like them, we choose against them, but He is the one who takes them out of us and replaces them with grace and beauty of a big girl. This is His work, and it's lovely. Like we started this night saying, you don't have to do this alone. You make the choice, and then God helps you from there. It's just a matter of whether or not you let him. So that wraps up this chapter. Like I said, I went a little bit long tonight, and I apologize for that. And I got my crying out of the way, so hopefully I'm not going to cry other nights. But I think I want to pray tonight to close this out. So, God, I thank you that you are amazing. I thank you for your love. I thank you for just your hand on all of us. And God, I ask right now that you will help us to look deep inside of us and see the things that need to change. Help us to see the things that we're doing right so that we don't just beat ourselves up over the things that we're not. But God, those things that we're not, help us just to take it a step at a time and to just let you come in and walk with us. Help us not to feel like we have to do this alone, but that we have you and that we have our friends and that we have our family and we have each other as we go through this study. I just pray right now that you will just continue to show us things that you want us to see about ourselves and help us to become who you've created us to become instead of who we are creating ourselves to be. And we love you, and I thank you for an amazing week. I pray a blessing over everyone that's watching this, and just help us to do what we can do, and I thank you that you're going to take over from there. And we love you, God. Okay, thank you guys for being here tonight, and we will see you. Let's see, Tommy will be speaking Wednesday at 7 and Sunday at 7, and then we'll be back next Monday with chapter 4. I guess that's it. Love you guys. Bye.